Welcome into the American Huddle alongside college football analyst Andy Gresh. I'm Haley Outen. We're happy to have you with us as we look ahead to Week 7 of the college football season. And lucky for us, all the action gets started on Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN as USF hits the road to Tulsa. Andy, the Bulls are undefeated. They're in the top 25 this week, and they're on the road for the second straight week. What's going to be the key for the Bulls against a tough Tulsa team?
They've got to eliminate the silly mistakes. And having seen them last week against UMass, there were a lot of penalties, Haley, that put them behind schedule. You can't have false starts. You can't make penalties on first down. They were trying to convert a lot of third and 13, third and 14s. That isn't going to work. You know, from the Tulsa standpoint, they got to stop Cronkrite, the running back, who ate up UMass for over 300 yards. He was the American Player of the Week. And Tulsa's got to win in the red zone. I mean, they got to score touchdowns. You know, they seem to be able to move the ball, and then they get bogged down a little bit. Now, USF, a little bit of a different monster now. They got a lot of guys who can run, a lot of guys who fly to the football, and they're very well coached. I think Tulsa's biggest advantage, they got them at home on a short week after they went from Tampa, Florida to Amherst, Massachusetts, which is a complete culture shock, and then back home after having gotten their win. So I think for Tulsa, they got a team coming in that will make some mistakes. They got a chance to upset them, but only if they really dominate in the red zone.
Again, you can catch USF and Tulsa at 7 p.m. Eastern kick on ESPN. Let's look ahead to Saturday, 3 conference games on the slate, and it's getting started with a very exciting matchup. In fact, the rematch of last year's championship game between UCF and Memphis. The Tigers get the Knights at home, a 3:30 Eastern kick, split between ABC and ESPN2, depending on where you're at in the country. Now, the Tigers, they've had a little bit of trouble this season on and off, and UCF rolling 18 straight. What do you expect to happen in this matchup?
Well, I mean, for Memphis, they got to slow down that UCF running game and force it to be all on the shoulders of Mackenzie Milton. Now, I know there's going to be people being like, well, hey, let me put down this barbecue, and you're telling me I want them to go after the damn guy who can win the Heisman Trophy? Yes, I am, because that's the way to win. If you let UCF run around all over the place on you, then Mackenzie Milton's just going to sit back there in a pocket and fling it. So if you're Memphis, you're going to have to play some man. You're going to have to trust your corners, and you got to make sure you slow down their run game. And then conversely, for Memphis, man, oh man, I want to see their run game get going, but I think it may end up just being on Brady White, the quarterback. They can do some things in special teams. Now, that's where Memphis may end up having a little bit of an advantage. But at the end of the day, I think Memphis load up against the run, see if Mackenzie Milton can beat you, try to possess the football as much as you can, running it with those 2 backs, and hope that Brady White's got a great day.
Now, with the performances that Darrell Henderson and Patrick Taylor had last week against UConn, 3 touchdowns apiece on the ground, how could that play a factor into this game? Because that's sort of a different element to Memphis's offense that we've seen.
Could they get those guys involved in the passing game early? Get them involved in the passing game, throw it out to them in the flats, and then see if you can then turn around and run the ball. So that's the way I would attack that. See if I can get those backs involved in the passing game and force UCF to have to defend yet another layer of their offense.
You have to imagine if you're a Memphis player coming off a 10-win season last year and losing to UCF twice, ultimately keeping the Tigers out of that New Year's Six bowl game. How fueled and ready to go are they going to be for this game?
Yeah, I think for UCF, this is their October danger, Will Robinson game, because they're on the road and they're going against the team, as you said. I think it's a great point. You know, revenge can be a great equalizer and a great motivator, and I think for Memphis, they can tap into that through Mike Norvell.
All right, again, you can tune into that one at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC or ESPN2. Moving on, Temple at Navy, also a 3:30 p.m. Eastern kick. The Mids coming off of a tough loss on the road at Air Force, and the Owls finally starting to roll. How do you expect this game to play out?
Well, I expect non-offensive touchdowns because that's Temple, and we know the Navy has the ability to score those non-offensive touchdowns as well. I think for me it's going to come down to the quarterbacks. Can the quarterback position, and I say quarterback position in Navy because you know they could change it on the fly, Will that position get back to putting 120, 130, 140 yards rushing up, which is what they didn't do last week? And then conversely with Temple, they're going to keep that offensive momentum going. I think they're finding themselves offensively. Like even in their loss to Boston College, another Power 16, they still scored 35 points. So I think Temple has found the way to be able to score. The question is, can they possess it long enough to score enough to be able to beat a Navy team that I think is very dangerous bouncing back from losses?
Rounding out Saturday's schedule, Houston makes the trip to ECU. The Cougars coming off of a win over Tulsa, and the Pirates a loss at Temple. Andy, how high scoring should fans expect this game to be?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some real points here. And look, from the ECU perspective, they put 41 on North Carolina and 37 on ODU. But Houston, this is ridiculous, folks. They scored 45 against Rice in Arizona, 49 in a loss to Texas Tech, 70 against Texas Southern, and 41 against Tulsa. And we saw last week with De'Aaron King, they can score in bunches and they can score touchdowns quickly. So I think for me the question is going to be, can ECU score with Houston? Because Houston's going to put points up on the board. And then can ECU deal with that Houston defense that seems to be rounding into shape? I think there will be points. I think there will mainly be for one side, but there's an opportunity for this thing to be like a pinball machine in terms of scoring and plays all over the place.
All right, before we go, Andy, I know everybody has this UCF Memphis game circled on their calendars. At least I know that we do.
Yeah.
But we're expecting a very competitive matchup. What do you predict the outcome of this game to be?
Well, I think it's going to be UCF in a close one. And I say close is relative because it could be 7 to 10 points on the win, but if it's 55-45 UCF, it's wow, there were a ton of points scored, and let's dig into this UCF defense. But I just think at the end of the day, you know, you get the ball in Mackenzie Milton's hands late and close, he's going to do what he needs to do to win, whether that means salting it away and driving the ball down the field to eat up the clock, or if they're down a couple and they got to go score points, that guy is going to go get it done. So I just think the quarterback, too overwhelming in terms of Mackenzie Milton. They need to make Milton try to win the game now, but I think he will do that. And the Memphis defense, I mean, if they can just shave those points per game down by about 7 points, they could really have something.
So you're predicting win number 19 for UCF
Yes.
comes on the road in Memphis
Yep.
this weekend. And we'll obviously be here to break that down for you again next week on the American Huddle. And I'll make sure to send out the Velvet memo again.
Yeah,
next
right?
week.
Like,
good.
what is going on here? I don't want to be like George Costanza and, like, feel the velvet, right? And then like, all of a sudden, Frank Costanza, what did you feel so much velvet for? You know, I feel like someone's going to yell at me.
They might.
But I got to say, this was pretty slick.
We won't go for the who wore it better thing.
Oh, listen, you could wear a burlap sack compared to me, and it looks better than anything that I'm rolling out. So come on.
I
barely
that.
fit in the damn picture.
All right. Well, on that note, that's another episode of the American Huddle. We'll be back with you next week to break down Week 7 of the college football season. On behalf of Andy Gresh, I'm Haley Outen. We'll see you then.